Hello, Fairchild. I wish I could be there in person with you all to support not only our military, but our military families. Thank you all so much for being here at Fairchild, discussing the challenges that our military families face on a daily basis. Thank you, Congresswoman McMorris Rogers and Congressman Sanford Bishop, for your leadership as co-chairs of the Military Family Caucus. And thank you for fighting for our military and their families every day as members of Congress. Military families are near and dear to my heart. My son is a Marine. I'm the daughter of an Air Force airman and the daughter-in-law of a U.S. Army veteran who fought in Korea. I know without a doubt that the strength of our nation not only comes from those who wear the uniform and protect us every day, but from the spouses, the children, the family, who serve right there alongside our service members and make great sacrifices to protect this country. This administration understands the challenges you face, and we feel that it is imperative to support our military families. The quality of life of our families affects our military readiness. I recently launched a campaign to elevate, encourage, and thank our military spouses. Military life is not easy. I've heard so many stories, and I know many will be shared today, about the difficulties of being hired, the inconsistent licensing requirements from state to state, the difficulties of completing a degree, the difficulties that come with health care and child care, and so much more. But it's at events like this Military Family Summit where so many government officials are gathered with military families that change can be effected. Again, I appreciate you all taking the time to be here today, and I wish you all the best for a successful summit. Thank you.
Good morning. So just a couple of notes. If you have a question that comes out of the audience, please just raise your hand so that Sergeant Juarez can see you. He's going to have a microphone that comes around. And so just stand, state your name, where you're from, unit kind of thing, and then ask your question. Also, for those in the back, we do have plenty of seats up front, so if you want to move forward during this, would be the perfect time. And thank you, panel, for being here. We do have some questions that have come from the floor. So I have one. I think there's some hungry people in here, Chief. So we're going to start with, from my limited knowledge of how contracts work, I don't know if you'll have an answer for it, but just kind of start it lighthearted. When will we drop the Burger King contract and get a Chick-fil-A on every Air Force installation?
Probably in about 50 years. I was stationed at Ramstein over in Germany prior to coming here, and Chick-fil-A actually wanted to come to Ramstein. The Department of Defense, though, seems to have an issue with the Sunday closing of Chick-fil-A, which is, we all know, is kind of a stalwart of their foundational, core beliefs in business. So. Not sure when we'll get a Chick-fil-A, and certainly not sure when we'll, I hate to use the term, rid ourselves of the Burger Kings, but we do work hard to try to find more healthy options for our airmen on the various bases. We need a little bit of help from you all, though. So we've tried providing healthy options on base, sometimes at the request of our service members, and then when we allow them, we don't use them. And so when we do take opportunities and frankly take risk in bringing some of the more healthy food options on base, I would ask that we need your patronage at those types of restaurants. So, but I'll get back to you on the Burger King, Chick-fil-A answer.
Right. Second question we have, is there still talk about taking BAH from military to military couples and giving them a flat rate?
So no discussion. There was some discussion last year, and myself and all of my counterparts, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard, Sergeant Major of the Army, and our SEAC, Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman. We got together. We wrote a joint statement for our support for service members maintaining their dual BAH, and we have not heard anything since. So as of right now, no threats to losing dual BAH for our service members. I'll just give you this.
He's like, no. I have one more that came from up here, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So thank you for your responses. They would like to know, is there any movement on getting rid of PDG testing for senior NCOs?
Hand that back.
This is the military family.
We did tell them every voice would be heard.
Absolutely. So actually, we're still working in reforming our promotion system for the United States Air Force and removing WAPS testing from our senior non-commissioned officer, the ones that already have a board process. I don't want to bore the rest of the folks who came here to talk about military families, but maybe I'll relate it to military families. So amongst all the things that this will do, it will give our senior non-commissioned officers 4 to 8 months back that they typically use studying for promotion. So they'll have that time back. And I know not everybody agrees. I ran into one of a good friend of mine that I was stationed with a long time ago. Not everybody agrees with that, but we'll make sure that, just like we do with all things, we look at the second and third order effects, and one of those will be that we'll be able to give you more time back with your families. And so hopefully this works out. We're probably 6 to 8 months, maybe a year out. Again, we want to make sure we have all the data, do all the analysis. Since that was the last question, maybe I'll just open up with a few comments. I imagine amongst all the distinguished visitors that we have here, we probably have some folks from Airmen and Family Readiness. I'm sure we have some folks from Veterans Affairs, various other veterans organizations. We obviously have some active duty service members, some guardsmen, and some reservists, and of course we have some spouses and family members. So we're a huge believer in the Air Force that success is a team sport. So many of the difficult challenges that we have, I'm glad to see everybody here so that we can tackle them together. One thing that I heard this morning, and I think it was General Bingham talked about, is the partnerships outside the gate. This is an area that we really have to explore. There are some challenges in the Air Force when it comes to spouses and families, or I would say some challenges in the Air Force that require scientists and engineers and analysts and all these things. There are other challenges that we can solve just based upon your feedback and your input. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have, but I'm actually mostly here to listen to the ideas that you have for us and put us to work and let us get busy doing the grunt work to get some of the things done based upon the ideas that you have, whether it's spousal employment, child care, some of the big ticket issues. So thank you for inviting us. Tanya and I, we're excited to be here, and she's looking forward to your questions.
No, again, I'm just honored to be here. I'm retired Air Force myself. I retired in 2014 and have been doing have been traveling with Khalid for the past 4 or 5 years as an Air Force spouse, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to travel with him to Air Force bases worldwide and meet with families and learn all about the unique challenges and everything else that goes along with being an Air Force spouse. And so I am just honored to be here today and looking forward to any questions and concerns you all had that we can take back.
Thanks for being here, Tanya. Good to see you. So Ron Anderson, Air National Guard Command Chief, and I just wanted to say thanks. I know that some of the folks had to leave, but I wanted to say thanks to our congressional members that set this up. and certainly to our secretary that was here from Veterans Affairs. If you haven't figured it out, these are our senior leaders who absolutely believe that what our families bring to the fight is important, and their presence, and certainly our continued support of the folks that are still here, their presence really kind of highlights how important getting this right for our families and for our nation is. On behalf of my wife, Amy, and I would tell you I'm absolutely honored to be here. She sends her regrets, but like many of you, she has a full-time job as well, and so she's trying to find that balance. Where does she take leave? Does she take leave to come out here, or do we take the military, or there's going to be the civilian leave that she gets to go to our daughter's wedding? We all love you, but our daughter's getting married, so. But those are the balances, right? And from our perspective, it is truly a balance. It's trying to find that balance in your life where the military member can be successful, the family can be successful, and we don't often get it right. And I think things that we're going to talk about today will help us find balance in this, whether it's to Chief Wright talking about the relationships that we have off base, our leadership being involved, all of those support mechanisms that we have. We've got to find the right balance, because at the end of the day, when one of them's out of balance, the rest of the thing starts to falter, and our airmen, our Marines, our soldiers, and our sailors may not be focused at work. Some things fall down at home, and our kids have struggling in school. So those kinds of things, this family business that we're all a part of, is incredibly important to Amy and I, and I'm honored to be here with you today. And so just thanks, and like Chief Wright said as well, we really do look for your feedback and input. Certainly from my perspective, I spent a lot of time with my boss, Lieutenant General Rice, thinking about 5, 10, 15 years from now. I spend time with our congressional members talking about that. And the things that we take to Capitol Hill, or the things that we take to the Pentagon and speak with our senior leadership, are not our own. We represent you when we're out there having those conversations. So your feedback and your input to us really helps us shape our talking points and our energy, and so we can focus it on what's important for you, the future of our military, not those of us who are serving now. So thanks for being here, and I really look forward to your input.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Sergeant Major Isaacson. I'm the Marine Family Sergeant Major. I'm sent here to represent Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, Sergeant Major Ron Green. He really sends his regrets, and one of the greatest things I get to do is travel around and kind of measure how you do programs compared to how we do programs. We had some great meetings yesterday. But one thing that I noticed this morning is the singing of the national anthem. We Marine Corps usually don't do that. So whoever was saying that, I want to say thank you. You did a great job. It was inspiring, so thank you. One thing you see lots of times is how we deliver programs or how we deliver services. And for the most part, all the services, we all do the same thing. The difference is how we deliver them. We all have different funding streams. We all have different priorities. And I think it's an incredible opportunity to get out and meet people. As you see, there's not a single Marine in the audience. Maybe a retired Marine in the back, maybe. But I love to hear from you. I love to hear how you guys are doing things. I love to hear your challenges. In fact, after this, I'm heading down to Lewis McChord and doing some of the similar things. It's easy to get institutionalized in how the Marine Corps does things, and I want to hear how everyone else is doing things. So thank you for the invitation. I look forward to the opportunity to hear from you. Thank you.
Raise your hand high.
Well, knowing that I was coming today, I asked my awesome son-in-law, who just retired with 21 out of the Air Force as Master Sergeant, for his questions he'd like to have asked of this distinguished audience. And he said one concern is that when a service member is sent TDY or training for some separation of some period of time, or in his case, he's choosing to leave the family behind for stability while on a PCS, there are some services that are not as available to the family, because the services are dependent on the location of the service member and not the location of the family. And that seems like something that could be fixed, and so I wanted to highlight that to raise that issue to this panel.
I will tell you that from a Guard perspective, we run into that often. We've got some, Air Force Reserve or Air National Guard units that aren't next to an active duty location. And from our perspective, we've learned to utilize some of these relationships that we've got outside the installation. But we heard a phone number today and a resource today that our airmen have in their phones, and that's Military One Source. I mean, and it's not the answer, but it is certainly an answer. Those folks will answer. I will tell you, we've used it. Those folks will answer, ma'am, to your point, 24/7, 365, and they can get you access to providers outside of an active duty military installation who will use their services at no charge. We've done that with some of our DPH folks who we needed to get some psychological care, some mental health care for some folks who didn't have the resources to do it. Through Military One Source, we were able to find providers outside who donated their time to take care of our family members at no charge. So there are resources like that, but your point is absolutely valid, and I certainly will take that on as something that we should look at and do better at. But places like Military One Source are certainly something that we rely on.
You know, there's another resource that I think we should take advantage of, and I saw quite a few of them here today, is our first sergeants. Now, I know not every unit in the United States Air Force has a diamond-wearing first sergeant, but most either have a first sergeant or somebody acting in that capacity. And so sometimes when we're deployed or we're TDY and we need that lifeline, when we need our spouse or one of our family members to be connected to someone, whether they're assigned to an installation or not, we could utilize our first sergeants to make those connections and take care of our airmen, whether near or far, when our service members are deployed. And I know this is something that I've utilized several times in helping connect airmen and families to resources while the service member is abroad somewhere. So.
Hey, one thing I've noticed, I mean, obviously the world's changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. And when we first came in, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, things were vastly different. You go on deployments and, you'd wait for the mail to show up, and that was the highlight of your day. So the biggest thing I've seen is this technology. Now, I know you guys are a little better at it than the Marine Corps is, but, you walk on a Marine Corps base and you go back in time about 15 years when it comes to technology. But we're trying and we're struggling with it, and I think that technology solves a lot of these things. You start getting into the live feeds on Facebook. You can teach classes. You can reach out to people. The opportunities that technology provides is solving a lot of the problems that we've had in the past. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. And will we get better? Sure, but it's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of money, but I think we're getting better.
I was part of OneSource in 2003. We started using OneSource on a regular basis. Can you hear me? After a year, it no longer is available to you. Once you've retired, it is no longer available to you after the first year. So that particular reference is only good for a short period of time. Sorry.
I wasn't aware of that. It was. Okay. Wow. Okay, so if you didn't hear, the comment was it used to be 180 days, so we just bumped it up to 365 posts. So yeah, that was for the rest of the audience as well.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Hernandez, and the issue I wanted to bring up was the capacity for childcare. Last year I had a baby, and my 12 weeks of maternity leave was still not enough to find childcare. I had to wait. I had to burn 2 weeks of ordinary leave to be able to get him off base, and the cost it was $1,800 for 2 kids. So for my daughter, for my 4-year-old, it took me 6 months to be able to get her on base. And I argue, if you want to retain mid-career women, childcare is really a big thing for us. So my question is the DoD really looking into expanding the capacity of childcare for military members and also the cost associated with it?
So I'll just say that child care is and continues to be one of the #1 issues that we see as we travel around. There is a lot of work that's being done to try to remedy that, but we do have a long way to go. One thing that they're trying to do right now is to get more FCC providers to kind of augment because, the fact of the matter is it's sometimes with the CDCs it's hard to get the providers that want to take that job. But it's a special job, and so not a lot of people, in different locations it varies, and so we see that sometimes it's just really hard to get those folks to come in, and so we're trying to hire more FCC providers. They're trying to up the pay for the FCC providers. They're, really working hard to make the background checks shorter time. And so, this is something that they continue to work to, because it really is, like I said, it's something that we continue to see everywhere we go. But it is, it's we're well aware of the issue, and it's something that we continue to work.
Honestly, I wish we could say that, hey, we're all over this and we're building more child development centers, which won't necessarily solve the problem, because, again, it's challenging finding folks who are passionate about caring for children that qualify and so on and so forth. So, but I will agree with what Tanya said, is that this is on our radar. This is on the radar of our secretary. It's on the radar of the Department of Defense and senior leaders. And so we'll continue to work, and it's multi-layered. So it's not just an issue of capacity. It's not just an issue of employment. There's various things that are wrapped into it. But what I'll promise you is, and I try not to make too many promises, is that we'll keep working these issues and finding the right solutions that work in various places. So there are some places you can go to, whether overseas or stateside, where the family child care programs, FCC, that Tanya mentioned, they work very well, because there happens to be a lot of people in the community on base or off base that provide home daycare. And there are other places, both CONUS and within the and OCONUS, where it just doesn't work. We just don't have the folks that are interested or have the capacity to do it. So I think General Bingham talked about those partnerships outside the gate. This is an opportunity for wing leaders, group, squadron commanders to engage with the local community to help out, to find solutions as well. So again, we'll stay on top of this for you. And congratulations.
So I was biting at the bit to get the microphone, but at the same time, I think they said everything I was going to say. So, the problem is really deep, and you're right. This is the number one problem I hear as I travel around. Marines, soldiers, airmen, everyone is really concerned with this, and rightfully so. The problem is multi-layered in the fact that sometimes it's MILCON, meaning construction. Right, so we were talking this morning about Fort Belvoir, which is in Virginia, was planning to build 6 new CDC centers, but they didn't get nowhere near that by the time the money ran out. Run into problems in Hawaii, and actually here. Here is one of the highest minimum wage in the country. Well, so now you have people that are trying to struggle with what is the military going to pay them to be child care providers, but then right outside the gate they make what, $15, $17 an hour or something like that. And so it's a constant problem. We talked about people being passionate. Well, we need those people to be passionate, almost because they're going to accept lower pay in some places. In Hawaii, we had problems. The Army, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps were all outbidding each other to try to get the child care providers. So what was happening is the Air Force would offer $1 more an hour, and so they would steal all the Marine Corps people, and then next thing you know, the Navy would find out and offer $1 more than the Air Force. And it got unsustainable, because then what happens? Who pays for that? Right, we do, right? Our kids pay. And so DOD just kind of stepped in and said, hey, one flat rate. They just did that recently. So this is a big problem, and it's everywhere. We're all over it, but we recognize there's issues. So,
just real quick, I will tell you that we've had some successes in the reserve component, particularly in the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve, in those partnerships that Chief talked about, because we've found that particularly in some of our 24-hour ops missions, where folks are maybe dual military, or, you're talking you need childcare at night and on drill weekends, or, those kind of, hey, I need childcare for 23 hours, and those complexities just brought a different challenge to the program. So we struggle with the same discussion, and what we found is the partnershiping with folks outside the gate, so to speak, of the military installation, and developing those relationships were the difference. We found a lot of successes, and we benchmarked some of those at our Air National Guard units, and we're able to share those with other wing command chiefs and wing commanders to say, hey, listen, here's how we were able to develop the relationships, here's how we were able to find a way to pay these folks and license them, and all of those complexities of the problem. It's a matter of, to the Sergeant Major's point, pulling us all together and sharing some of these challenges and successes that we've got. But it is, to Chief Wright's point, this is a really, really complex problem, and we've just got to really work hard at it. And it's good to know that our senior leadership is really, this is on the forefront of their thoughts.
Good morning. I'm Chief Jason Micklewright, 92nd Medical Group. I'm concerned for my children that there is a lack of an awareness as they transition from school district to school district on their educational records. I have 3 school-age children, ages 13, 11, and 9. They've been in 7 different schools in the last 6 years in 5 different states. None of the schools will transfer records from a previous installation. So in the school district that my kids are now, everything that they've gotten has been the last report cards and a shot record. None of the state testing from previous locations has followed them forward, and that has delayed diagnosing one of my children with a difficulty reading. And I'm concerned that not only for me, but for every branch, all of our dependents are having similar difficulties, and they're not even aware of it. Because as we are taking our kids' educational records, I have copies of everything, but the schools will not accept my copy. They need an official one that is transferred. But nothing is getting transferred from one location to the next. It's not a cumulative record, and I'm concerned that's happening more often than not.
Yeah, so that is a very good point. With similarly to spouse employment, we use the Defense State Liaison Office to help build some partnerships between states in terms of licensure transferability. I think we could take advantage of this and do the same thing from an education standpoint, along with our MSEP, I think our Military Child and Education Coalition, MSEC, is here. This is an area where I'm not sure if we're already doing any work with interstate compacts and recognizing the transferability of testing and grades and all of those things. But I'll take that as a tasker to get more information on exactly what we might be doing in terms of, and if we could leverage the Defense State Liaison Office as well to do some of the same things that we've done with spouse employment and again with licensure and some other things. But
morning, I'm Ray Ornelas, military family advocate, Air Force retired, work for the Medical Lake School District. Chief Micklewright, on a break, I'd love to talk with you. My concern, and I hope this is, I'm torn to whether I hope this is new or not new to you, but the free and reduced lunch program, incorporating the BAH for off-base, but not on. So privatized housing are not required to record the housing allowance on base as income. Those that live off do have to record it as income. It's an inequity here with the housing occupancy rate in the high 90s. I imagine other locations it's similar. So many of our airmen don't have a choice. The children in our school district, they're forced to potentially have a spouse that works as well, reducing the opportunity to have a stable foundation at home, come home from homework. It is impacting our children's education. I just would like some support if we can find some.
okay, so I wasn't tracking. This is my first time hearing about it, so I'll get some more information from you and see what we can do in this area.
Sergeant O'Hara from the 92nd MXS. I have a few very grave concerns in regards to the EFMP program. As a direct result of the last 4 years, my wife and I have been trying to fight through this entire EFMP system. She is paralyzed across half her body, and she has her ability to speak is gravely impaired, as well as her cognition, and she was halfway through her master's degree in psychology. With that being said, she no longer can find employment because of her disabilities. We have been attempting to get an assignment to get her back to where her family is, but most of the regulations have been written in a way to prevent people from getting orders strictly for family support unless severe circumstances denote. But there is no guidance for exactly what is a severe circumstance. And all of this boils down to her strokes that she had 4 years ago. She had 2 massive strokes with reference to a back surgery that she had 3 weeks after that surgery is when she had these strokes. And we have had difficulty after difficulty when it comes to dealing with the EFMP program, when it comes to dealing with an adult in the EFMP program, because it is mainly written for minors with disabilities rather than adults. So there is no program in place that can help us. There's not been any, we have gone through Military One Source, we have been through the EFMP program here. We have had, they have been able to do nothing for us. As a result, it has just been fight after fight for the last 4 years. And we've gotten to the point now where I'm 18 months out from my date of separation from higher tenure, and I can't make rank as a result of having to help her with everything else, and I don't have the time that I need to support the mission as much as possible, as well as try to seek something higher on an EPR rating, because of all the support I have to provide her and our family. And even with that being said, I've deployed twice with my wife in her present condition, and we didn't see much support from the EFMP community with regard to that, again, because she's an adult. It has nothing to do with the EFMP program itself. It's just something about that needs to change.
I will say, I know it doesn't help your current situation, sir, but I will say that there is a lot of work being done with the EFMP program itself right now. They just held a summit in August, and they're trying to streamline a lot of the processes. I will agree with you that it is a lot of times more geared towards children, but this is an issue that we will take back and make sure that they're looking at more closely at adult cases as well.
You know, I spoke to a service member, a senior master sergeant, over the weekend who sent me a Facebook message about this very topic, the challenges of our exceptional family member program. And after much discussion, I asked her, hey, if there was one thing, what's the one area where we could really focus? And her response was the actual assignment system. So I agree with you that the rules are probably outdated the way we've written the rules and don't add a personal touch, but she kept coming back to the assignment system and the way the assignment system worked. And one of the questions I asked her was, hey, in all of your struggles, very similar to yours, was there someone at AFPC who was personally assigned and had personal interest in your particular situation, in your case, to help you walk through the situation? Now, her response was, hey, I just got the person who answered the phone at AFPC when I called, and so I would have the same question for you, even though I think I might know the answer to the question. But this is something that we've asked our leadership at AFPC to really take a look at. And I know we have several thousand EFMP families across our Air Force, if not tens of thousands. And so this is not necessarily an easy task, but I think this is part of the solution, is having a more personalized approach to assignments, period, but certainly for specialized assignments like in your wife's case.
Yes, sir. We did not have a case manager of any sort assigned to us, and in fact, when I applied for a humanitarian reassignment, it was bumped up to AFPC. AFPC switched it to an EFMP reassignment and then denied it based on those rules,
right,
which it was never written for.
Yeah. So our goal is to bring a much more personalized approach to EFMP and other specialized assignments. So we'll keep working that issue for you.
Okay, we'll have time for one more question, and then we're going to go on break and try to make our panel members available if your questions are not answered. Our next panel that's going to come up after the break is military challenges, so some of your questions can probably be very much answered in that panel as well.
Hello, Airman Tidwell with the 92nd OSS. My question was with the Air Force Cool program, if there's any thought of opening up all the credentials and certificates we can obtain no matter what career field you're in.
No, we didn't do it just yet, but I've been working on them. I've been working on our Air Force Cool folks to open this up. So right now, you have to, for the certifications that are available through this program, you have to do one that's relevant or in or near your actual specialty. So if you're an engineer, you can't get a cybersecurity certification and so on and so forth. There's a little bit of concern about waste. I think is their primary concern, waste, and a little bit of concern about return on investment for the Air Force. But I think we're almost to a point where we can allow airmen, service members, particularly I'll talk about airmen, to be able to take those certifications. We have, so a long time ago, even with your regular tuition assistance, you could just take as many classes. I have some friends that have 220 credit hours and no degree, because before, when I was going through my education, you could just take whatever classes you want. You didn't have to have a degree plan or anything. And I think we can put the same controls into the Air Force Cool program to make sure that there's not a lot of waste and that we get some return on investment. And frankly, anytime we can better educate our airmen, it's a return on investment for us. Not every airman, especially those of you who may be separating, and again, I'll use the same example. You may be an engineer now and you're getting ready to separate. You may not want to be an engineer in your next life, so a certification in that career field might not do you much good. So we'll keep working to get that expanded for other career fields.
Thank you, Chief Wright, Mrs. Wright, Chief Henderson, and Sergeant Major Isaacson.
Welcome everyone to the panel on military spouse employment and education. We're fielding several questions from you today and also have a panel of experts to discuss several of the issues that have already been brought up today. I'm thrilled to be with you. My name is Amanda Folks. I represent Thanks USA, which is a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. that provides scholarships for military dependents. Within that organization, I run the Pathways for Patriots program, which is an extension of our scholarship program that opens up networking, mentoring opportunities, and internship opportunities to our scholars as well as our applicants. Since 2006, we have awarded over $14 million in scholarships to military families across all 50 states and from all, yes, thank you. And from all branches of service, both Guard and Reserve, active duty. Excuse me. My connection to military dependents, like many of you, is I get to wear several hats with you today. I have several irons in the fire of military families, if you will. I'm a military spouse, have been for 19 years. My husband served just over 20 years in the Air Force. My father put 20 years in the Air Force as well, and my son is a senior in high school and hoping to do Air Force ROTC. With no pressure on that. Let's see, we're raising 6 kids in a military family, which is challenging and rewarding in so many regards. But I feel very blessed to be a part of the military family and to be a part of the military spouse family, which I think is a very unique and very special role to be in. Let's see, with that, I'd like to introduce our panel members that we have today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Ms. Stevens.
Green light works. Good morning. I'm Carolyn Stevens. I'm the Director of the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy within the Department of Defense. I'm part of Military Community and Family Policy. You heard from our DASD earlier this morning, Mrs. Johnston.
Good morning. My name is Christy Ham. I'm the Chairwoman for Military Families for High Standards. I'm a military spouse. My husband served active duty for 39 years with America's Finest in the Army, and I now take on this initiative to work for the betterment of the educational futures of all the little people that Army service members and Air Force service members and all of those in boots have brought into the world.
Thank you. I'm Jack Ballantyne. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Military Child Education Coalition. A bit of background on me. I'm a third-generation Army brat, and that's a term of endearment. I might have been a brat when I was little, so I know what it's like to move around. I joined the service. I was served for 30 years in the Army. During that time, I raised 2 boys. We started our family when I was a captain. We moved 14 times raising the 2 boys. 5 of our stations were outside the gate in a community, and so we have that relationship. And then the other 9 moves were on an installation. My boys attended 8 different schools in their K-12 journey. Both of them graduated from a great DoDEA school called Seoul American. And so they are products of the DoDEA system, which works, and they did okay. I have one son who is in the Army Reserves. He served active, and now he's in the Army Reserves, and my other son is a school teacher. So with 2 sons, one still serving and one is a school teacher, they continue to keep me well grounded in my current job.
Good morning. My name's Amanda Crow. I am a Navy veteran. I did 8 years in the Navy Reserve and have been a military spouse to an active duty Navy guy who's on his 16-and-a-half-ish year of service at this point. And I've been with him for all but 2 of those years of service. We're raising 2 kiddos as well, one EF&P 6-year-old son with type 1 diabetes and a 2-year-old sassy pants named Kennedy, who keeps us where we need to be, grounded and working. I represent Hiring Our Heroes. We work on veteran and military spouse employment issues. So we work with all of the service installation branches and offices, as well as lots of corporate partners and community partners along the way to help transitioning service members make that transition into their service career. But also, and my focus is military spouse employment, and we work to try and help the spouses of active duty, Guard, Reserve, and transitioning service members find meaningful employment wherever you find yourself today. So we'll talk more about that as we dive in.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Barron. I'm the Director of Family Readiness for the Association of the United States Army. And we are the only association, a service-affiliated association, that has a directorate that is specifically focused on military family issues, and for us specifically Army family issues. I know that the AFA, Air Force Association, and also the Navy League are trying to see what we do and feel, maybe consider putting in their own type of department at those prospective organizations. But I'm extremely happy to be here and share some of my knowledge with you. I am a military spouse, an Army spouse of 30 years. My very handsome husband is over there. He'll be on the next panel. So we are kind of a family team when it comes to military family issues and advocacy. And we did raise 3 children. One of them now lives in New York City. I don't know what I did wrong. My daughter is an Army spouse, also a veteran. She served for 7 years, and their family is currently living in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. And my youngest son is getting a master's degree out of Virginia Tech in quantitative ecology. I have no idea what that means. All I know is that he works with turtles.
Fantastic. Thank you to each of you. As you can see, we have been really blessed today to have a panel full of expertise and experience, both professionally and personally. And so we really hope to be able to touch on several of the issues that you have, questions that you have, and to give you some resources to walk away today feeling a little bit more empowered about the employment and education of military families. Now, Jack, I'd like to start with you, as we have already heard from some today, some discussion about the need for parent education as to how military families can best be advocates for their children. Can you touch on that for us?
Yes, thank you. Our organization was born 20 years ago when some military spouses at Fort Hood, Texas, were all wrestling with the issue of transition, much like a question we heard earlier here. And they decided that somebody needed to get together and solve this problem of transition state to state, district to district, schoolhouse to schoolhouse, and all the challenges that go with that. And so for 20 years, our organization has been trying to wrestle with that problem and create a solution for it. Much like what we heard already today, and the last word in our organizational name, it's a coalition, and it takes a team. We don't have all the answers. You got to use your neighbors, you got to use your partners, you got to network, and look for resources and solutions. And that's really what we do. We're a facilitator. We're an organization that helps look for solutions, but we do provide resources and help. I think my theme for today would be that all of us that are military parents, and we have military kids that are going through these school transition challenges, and we want, just like every parent, whether you're military or civilian, you want your child to have the very best education they can have and to be all that they can be when they grow up to be adult. You know, like our mission statement, our vision, we want every military child to be college, workforce, and life ready. That's what every parent wants. And so what we try and do is we try and make sure that the parent can be the best advocate for their child's education, and that means they have to be empowered with information. They have to know where to go, where to look, questions to ask, know where resources are. And there's so much of that out there that it can almost be overwhelming when you're looking for solutions and you don't know where to go. Hopefully Military One Source will be that in the end. I don't think it's there yet, frankly, that's my opinion. But the intent and the goal is there. That's what the parents tell us. There's too much information. We don't know where to go. My issues are with my child, and my child is an individual. And then my individual children needs individual solutions, and that's really what we need to work for. So military parents, when you're struggling with these challenges, you need to know where to look. You need to know what questions to ask. You need to know what information is there. And you have to start early, and you have to think 1 or 2 steps ahead. And you need to plan early. And I'll maybe address some more of these things later on so I don't be a hog on the mic.
Thank you. Christy, would you like to address that as well? I know your organization works closely with that, and as Jack so eloquently put, this is about individuals and not necessarily a group, and touch a little bit on the military student identifier and how that impacts this work as well?
Absolutely. Military Families for High Standards is a group of military spouses from all the service organizations, active duty and retired, as well as Guard and Reserve and Coast Guard. They've heard the stories, or they've lived the stories of those educational moments when life greets you with challenges that you're not sure you can accept, much less overcome. Jack's correct in saying that a parent's initiative is imperative for that child to succeed, because the parent is the only advocate that child has who will speak to the end and fight the finest fight to get that child what they deserve for their educational futures and their tomorrows in life. We worked with not only MSEC, but 8 other military child-oriented organizations to put together a transition guide that gives the parents a hand tool in preparing for those PCS orders and moving to another family destination and adventures. It'll be available for you out back to have your own copy, and is available for download online. But it gives some bullet points that reference each of the steps that Jack talked about that need to be made before the movers come, before the last report card's given, before the new courses need to be signed up for, or the new teacher needs to be begged for. The Every Student Succeeds Act has a very important element in it, and that's called the Military Student Identifier. For years, those involved in education for military children have looked for, have begged for, have wanted something that informs a district of who's in their classrooms, so that they know that there are, in fact, military-related children enrolled in their schools, so that they can address the needs of those children, so they can be sensitive to events that occur that affect military children, so that they can offer programs that better support the needs of those children, not only while they're in place where they are, but before they move forward to that next location. The airman who raised that question, second to the last question, about his family and all the school sites that they'd been enrolled at, and the number of times he's begged for transcripts and begged for educational information from a past school site. We hear that story so often. We've heard it for years. We sympathize with it. We cry about it because we keep hearing it and it doesn't have the kind of solutions that we want, but we're energized by it. And so we repeat it and we catalog it together with others to raise that consciousness among school districts so that those military students who deserve the very best that can be offered to them, and they should be able to anticipate that, receive it every time they're asked to get up and go, to haul their backpack to a new location. I just want to make one point. Those of you in here in uniform, you know, you've heard it, you're the 1% of our nation. You're making choices about your future. You've reached a professional development point, and you need to either move forward or, sadly sometimes, move over, move elsewhere. Lots of service members are in that 1% are making that decision based on educational issues that their families are raising. You as a 1% tell stories of the military background that you came from, that those in your family who serve. And our nation looks to your children because they're part of the 1% forward that will decide to serve. What happens if you don't stay in after we've trained you, after we've been gifted by your talents? What happens if you make a decision to leave because we can't answer the needs of your family educationally? That's what compels us to stay focused on these points.
Thank you, Christy. Yes, Jack.
Yeah, if I can just postscript one thing about the military student identifier, which is new under the Every Student Succeeds Act, because I know that the Family Caucus is looking for issues, and I know that we have Guard and Reserve represented here. The military student identifier, when it was passed into federal regulation, only applies to the active service, and it does not compel school districts to account for Guard and Reserve, and that is a shortcoming that we fought for. We were unsuccessful. We've not given up the fight, but if you're Guard and Reserve, your voice needs to be heard through your congressional liaisons. The caucus can take it up as an issue, but we're a total force, and we need to be recognized as a total force, not an active force, in identifying who our kids are. Guard and Reserve kids are in school seats in every zip code in the states, and they need to be identified, and right now they're the silent majority.
Thank you, Jack. Patty, I'm wondering if in your position with the Association of the Army, do you touch on these issues? And if so, can you touch on anything that hasn't been covered?
We definitely keep an eye on all of the issues that affect our military families, and certainly I'm very proud of the fact that I work with many of the folks that are at this table and in the audience to stay aware of what those issues are and then inform our family members. The mission of the Association of the United States Army is to educate, inform, and connect our Army families to those that would support them and serve them, and vice versa. One of the things that is incredibly important and sometimes very frustrating, and you might be talking a little bit more about it, and the expertise is on that side when it comes to this, but there is something called the Military Children's Interstate Compact, the Education of Military Children's Interstate Compact, and Jack and Christy can probably tell you more about that, but the frustrating thing to me is when we reach out to our Army families and we talk about some of the places where they can find support on some of the issues that we hear raised today, they don't know about them. And so how do we, and I know that's something that all of you are frustrated with. those of you in the audience that are wearing the uniform get an awful lot of information. What do you do with that information when it pertains to your families? Do you take it home? Do you discuss it over the dinner table? Do you talk to your families about it? More than likely you don't, because you're busy, the op tempo is very high, you've got a million other things on your mind. But remember that if you don't get that information to that person at home who's making those decisions for your family, for the children, for finances, for just a plethora of different kinds of issues, then they're not going to be armed with tools that they need to make that quality of life better than it can be. And it can be very, very good. We spent 30 years in the Army. I loved every minute of it, liked most of it, hated some of it. So, but really it's up to you to get that information down to and share it with your spouses and your family members, and it's up to us to make sure that we're giving it to you in a way that's easily digestible that you could take back. But let me let the experts talk about the Interstate Compact.
Hi, I'm going to jump in and do another shout out. Earlier this morning, you heard mention of the Defense State Liaison Office. That's the office within Military, Community, and Family Policy that has as its mission the desire to work within states, work with state legislators to help change some of these issues that you're talking about. And so much of the work that has come about with the Interstate Compact Act, things like ensuring that the state history course your teenager took in one state can apply to graduation requirements in another state, so they don't have to repeat it. Issues related to being selected for teams for sports. That's all been part of the work that the Defense State Liaison Office has been engaged with and continues to be engaged with, and they certainly work very closely both with our state legislators and with our partners. And guess where you can find information about what DSLO is doing? Military OneSource. So I would encourage you to stay engaged through Military OneSource with some of that information as well. Back to you.
Thank you. Yes, Jack, please.
Yeah, if it's okay, I want to do another postscript on MIC3. That's MIC3. That's what we call the Interstate Compact. All 50 states in the district have it. They're all signed on to it. But you need to know, and we're here at Fairchild, you'll be here for 2 or 3 years and you're going to move to another state. The states are not all equal on how well they've implemented the Military Interstate Compact. Every state has a state commission. Every commission has a military rep. And so when you have problems and you go to a different state, you need to go and beat on the door of that military rep that sits on that commission. Every installation has a school liaison officer. You've got a great one here, Steve McMullen. Raise your hand in the back. The school district here also has a military liaison officer assigned to it on their staff. Ray Ornelas, are you here? Well, he might have stepped out. But these are people who know what MIC3 can and can't do for you. And again, as a parent, it's not something that you can wave the MIC3 and say, I want my algebra grade changed from a D to a B because we changed schools. It doesn't work like that. In some cases, it will help you with transition issues, but in other cases, it won't apply. So as a parent, you need to know what MIC3 can and can't do for you, and there are plenty of resources that will tell you and instruct you on how to leverage that. But what we need to do as a body, as a voice, is make the commission and make MIC3 at the state level do what it was intended to do and be fully implemented, to be fully staffed, and to meet regularly and report out. And that's just what we need to do to take MIC through the next level if it in fact is going to help us as a community with our challenges. There's more work to do there.
Thank you very much. I want to give the panel members just an opportunity if there's anything more on education you want to touch on. We do have 2 subjects. We'll shift gears if not. Wonderful, thank you. I know as a military spouse, a trend that I have noticed over my husband's career is that we tend to choose where we live based not on where we're stationed, but we pick a home based on where our children are going to go to school. So the issue that's here is significant, it's profound, and thank you for everything that's been touched on, and I know that if you have any additional questions that our panelists will be available to as well. Speaking of moving and transitions and choosing where you are living, the other issue that we're here to discuss is military spouse employment. There have been a number of changes and resources that have come just in the last 12 months significantly, although this topic has been evolving for many, many years. Amanda, I'd like to turn that over to you to talk a little bit about Hiring Our Heroes and what you've done there.
Absolutely. So Hiring Our Heroes was started in 2011. We're part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And as I mentioned earlier, the focus has been on veteran unemployment and now military spouse unemployment. For the last several years, we've really moved forward with that. So we have a number of initiatives around military spouse employment that we're working on. Somebody mentioned earlier that spouses remain unemployed at 4 times the rate of civilian counterparts, and that is still what we're seeing as well. We're also talking a lot about military spouse underemployment. As you might imagine, moving as often as many of us do results in us losing opportunities for promotion, losing opportunities to maintain any kind of seniority, and that doesn't also speak to the economic changes and the difficulties it can bring to salary negotiation when you move from one location to another with a vastly different cost of living and salary market. So around those programs, or around those issues, we've built a number of programs in our military spouse program. We do spouse-facing hiring fairs and networking receptions. That means we recruit employers who have specifically committed to hiring military spouses. We're working very hard on all of these things to take military spouses out of the fine print. That's a lot of what we're talking about. As an organization, we always talk about getting left of transition, and for military spouses, that transition is happening over and over and over. So we're working to take spouses out of the fine print. The program that I manage is called the Military Spouse Professional Network. So we are a system of networks. We now have 50 plus locations around the world that are led by military spouse volunteers in the local community who are working to provide a soft landing spot. We want to do 2 things. We want to create community for career-minded military spouses. We've found in our survey last year that over 65% of spouses believe that 2 incomes is necessary in the military life. It's a necessary tool for approaching transition. My husband has 4 to 6-ish years left in his military service. And as a senior enlisted guy, while we're fairly comfortable right now and can be comfortable again afterwards, his retirement alone would not sustain our family. So my finding employment, keeping employment, maintaining employment through our transition is a huge tool for making that transition a smooth one for our family. So that's something we're looking at for spouses across the board. Those networks that I mentioned in the local communities also serve to create community connections. So we want that to be a networking group. We work on some professional development, but we also work on plugging into the local community through the Chamber of Commerce, through professional organizations locally, so that the spouses who are moving to an area like Spokane, maybe never being stationed here before, can network quicker into an opportunity that will help them find that next career position. Right alongside that, the last thing that I'll talk about at this point is our military spouse economic empowerment zones. We actually were here just a few weeks ago in Spokane, and those economic empowerment zones are a community effort. So we have worked there with city, state, and regional leadership, military leadership on the installations as well, to really put a focus on that employment issue locally, to customize our efforts and our deliverables to the local area. You guys know better than anyone what industries are important in Spokane. What kind of talent are you missing? What kind of talent can the military spouse population add to your organizations? So we're trying to create a pipeline between those 2 things. We know that military spouse talent exists, and we know that when employers recognize that and can identify their gaps, we can help fill them. So we're building pipelines back and forth between the 2 efforts.
Thank you, Amanda. You make a great point that military spouses, in the service that they give, collect a wide range of skills that are not only very valuable, but are highly desired in the workforce. Carolyn, I'm wondering if you'd like to speak to that as well.
You know, I realize that I'm sitting up here and I sound like I'm the only panel member that has no spouse connection, so I do want to say that I am a proud Air Force spouse of many years. And many of the, thank you. And what's fascinating to me is that some of the issues we're talking about now are issues that those of us that have been spouses for quite a while experienced along the way. But I'm really proud of the efforts that have gone into acknowledging that these issues exist and that we can problem solve to help make things better for our military spouses. What I'd like to touch upon is the department's approach to addressing this issue. And we really look at the problem of spouse unemployment and underemployment as a life cycle issue. We know that our spouses come into service with their service member at different various stages of life. And so we've really developed 4 different opportunities to deliver services to our families. So I want to briefly just run through these. I think some of them you may be aware of. But we serve our military spouses through the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program, SECO. You may have heard of that. And we use Military OneSource as a way to provide direct services through online access so that we can give information to our spouses about careers and about education. So it's more than just jobs. It's about improving your skill set. It's about improving your professional development opportunities. And we do that through the MySeco website. In fact, one of the top 3 reasons that people contact Military OneSource is for information about spouse employment. The second area that we touch the life cycle of a spouse is through our Spouse Career Center. So imagine that you are a spouse who is brand new to the workforce and you have no idea how to build a resume. Or you're a spouse who's gone through several different moves and you've worked in all kinds of different jobs because that's what's been available to you. And you need some help in how to interpret the skills that you've developed so that you can be marketable to a new employee. And so through our Career Center, spouses have access at no cost to a career counselor for resume building, for interview skills, for the kinds of things that really give concrete and deliverable kinds of assistance to our spouses as they're looking for employment. The Career Advancement Account, MyCAA, I think you're probably aware of. That's a $4,000 scholarship for licensure, for certifications, for associate degrees. There is a limitation on who is eligible for the MyCAA dollars. It is based on our lower enlisted grades and officer grades. We have had more than 21,000 spouses take advantage of those scholarship dollars. And then finally, you heard mentioned this morning about MSEP, the Military Spouse Employment Partnership Program. As of yesterday, over 390 employer partners have signed on and vowed to help recruit and hire and work with our military spouses. And we think that's just another example, very similar to what's happening in your arena, but it's an example of reaching out into the community and working together to find solutions for our families, for our military spouses as they seek employment.
Fantastic, thank you.
And I'm going to do a postscript before I even let go of the mic.
Good.
How's that? 2 things that we're particularly excited about that have happened within the last 12 months. And this will be familiar. So our partnership with LinkedIn to offer LinkedIn Premium, which gives our spouses access to some amazing resources through LinkedIn. And it's available to spouses when they PCS and for a year after separation. Really incredible stuff, and I know Hiring Our Heroes has also been involved with that organization as well. And then, as was mentioned earlier, because the resources of Military OneSource are now available for a full year rather than 6 months, it means that our spouses who are separating have that additional time to have access to information.
Thank you very much. We're reaching the end of our panel here, but I wanted to give an opportunity for each of you, starting with Patty, to share with us anything else you'd like to share that we didn't touch on. And please, if you could get a little specific on how individuals here can access the programs that we've been talking about. A lot of times we'll attend these events and we'll hear wonderful resources, but we don't know exactly how to tap into them. So if you could touch on that, that would be great.
Thank you so much. I'll try to be quick, but one thing we haven't talked about is entrepreneurship, military spouse entrepreneurship. And I want to just give you a statistic that I found just absolutely fascinating. First of all, as we've said, about the unemployment rate for military spouses is about 24%. And more spouses are taking control over that. And they're saying, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. And when I went online to look up some statistics, I found that women-owned small businesses, there are more than 11.6 million of them, employ nearly 9 million people, generating $1.7 trillion in sales. And this is according to the National Association of Women Business Owners. Among that 11.6 million business owners are military spouses and veterans, and female veterans. And that's just amazing to me. So I just want a show of hands. How many of you in the room have a spouse that has either an Etsy shop or is selling direct sales like Rodan Fields or Longaberger Baskets, or something like that? Are any of your spouses involved in something like that? Well, you're contributing to that $1.7 trillion, which is amazing. Small businesses come in 4 different ways. You can have a sole proprietorship, like the Etsy shop, or maybe being involved in a direct sales partnership. You can also be with a corporation, or you can have a limited liability company or an LLC. But I think the most important thing that I've learned recently, and we hosted our annual meeting at AUSA last week, and we had an entire panel of employees, experts, and one of them talked about a new DOD directive, I guess, that clarifies how a military spouse can run a business on an installation, because there's been an awful lot of confusion around that. And so if you're not competing with MWR, Military Welfare Recreation, or you're not competing with the AFES, more than likely you're going to be able to run a business on post. Now, if I'm selling Rodan Fields, which is a skincare line, which makes me look so young, if I'm selling Rodan Fields, that's not necessarily going to compete with the PX. One, because the PX doesn't sell Rodan Fields, and 2, because I'm probably going to be selling just to my friends and neighbors, so it's not a big jump in sales. And if I'm on an e-commerce business, if I'm in an e-commerce business like Etsy, like eBay, I'm not going to be competing. So those types of businesses are fine. However, it always boils down to the garrison commander or the installation commander to give you that ultimate permission to run a business on an installation if you're living in quarters. And I'm always so proud to work with the Office of the Assistant Chief of Installation Management Command. You met Lieutenant General Bingham today, because we've brought this up to General Bingham and her staff before, and I know that they're working on standardizing the policy from installation to installation on what is required to run a business on an installation. And this is my last point, but it's a really good point. One of the things that came out of that panel that we had last week was, wouldn't it be great to be able to have some kind of a site on an installation website that tells you, these are the requirements for running your own business on an installation. These are the requirements for what you need to do to sign up for different programs, so that you know ahead of time what you have to gather, what you have to do, so that by the time you get to that installation, you're ready to go. And I know that AXIM is working on many of those issues, and I'm excited that that's going to make it even easier for our military families.
Thank you, Patty, and thank you for bringing up entrepreneurship. I appreciate that. I know that's something that you are particularly passionate about. If anybody has any questions, Patty's a wonderful resource for that. Thank you. Amanda.
Yeah, thanks. So the last thing that I didn't mention before, we've also started a campaign called Hiring 100,000, and the goal is to hire 100,000 military spouses by 2021. We can't hire them all ourselves, nor can the companies that we currently have partnerships hire all 100,000 of those. But I'll tell you, we spearheaded a similar campaign for veterans starting 5 or 6 years ago, and we're infinitely successful. And part of the way that success was gained was with small businesses in local communities. And so I've got some flyers out on our resource table for the Hiring 100,000. If you or your spouse are working for an employer who wants to get involved, it's a no-cost commitment, and it's something that they can look at, either committing ahead of time to hire military spouses, or they can commit to reporting at the end of the year how many spouses they were able to hire. So there's lots of ways to get involved. Also, for the Military Spouse Professional Network that I mentioned before, in the state of Washington currently, our network is at Joint Base Lewis McChord, but we've been having some conversations lately with the opening of our Economic Empowerment Zone here in Spokane that we would also love to bring one of the Military Spouse Professional Network locations here. So again, if you're a spouse or know a spouse who might want to help us volunteer and bring the network here to Spokane, I would love to talk to you afterwards. I've got some flyers on the table and my business card, and you can find anything about our Hiring Our Heroes program at hiringourheroes.org. So thanks for letting us share today.
Thank you, Amanda. And I believe that there are other cities that will be opening up those spouse economic opportunity zones. Excuse me for messing up that title. In the near future, is that correct?
That's right. So Washington actually, state leadership joined on to make Washington one of our first statewide economic empowerment zone for military spouses. So with that in mind, we've done kind of mini launches here in Spokane and in Olympia, and there will be additional ones throughout the state of Washington. So we're really grateful for the state leadership and the cities who have jumped on board. And then we're opening those economic empowerment zones really across the country, and hope to make this, like I said, a pipeline and kind of a web of systems, of networks, if you will, to match those spouse talents with the needs of employers.
Thank you. Spouse Economic Empowerment Zone. I'm better with acronyms.
MC.
Thank you.
I just want to close with reiterate that our philosophy is that every parent needs to be empowered to be the best advocate for their child's education, and that's what our mission is all about. When you're a parent and you're looking for information, go to our website, militarychild.org. We also have a resource table out there. Grab a business card, grab a flyer. We do weekly podcasts with information for parents. We have over 100 workshops from 0 to 3 all the way up to college preparation to help parents understand how to guide their child's journey. We have webinars that are weekly on Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. They're free. Everything we do is free. So you can get a webinar live. You can get a webinar off our website that's been recorded. You can listen to podcasts. You can ask us to bring a parent education seminar to the installation, and we'll bring a team out to present a series of workshops to help. And we have what we call Aunt Peggy, where you can go to our website, go to the Aunt Peggy button, and ask us a question, and we will resolve that question as quickly as we can for you. So we're here to help parents.
Thank you, Jack. And let me just say, as a mom of military kids, I have found those resources to be very helpful. The podcasts, the webinars, I encourage you to go to the website and participate in those. The Parent-to-Parent initiative, as well as the Read Me a Story, a number of other wonderful initiatives through your coalition. So thank you. Christy.
I know that those of you in the room that are parents of the brightest children. As you want to work and be involved in the choices that you make for them as they move with you through your military career, take a look at Military Families for High Standards. It may be an initiative that you want to give attention to and be involved with, and we'd love to have you join with us. It may be where you look to find answers from spouses who've been there, done that, and can help strengthen the end result of your hard work for your child. We recently teamed with the Lexington Institute, who looked at several military communities for the good news about the military student identifier, allowing them to stand as examples for other school districts as we implement that, to improve the opportunities for military children and the benefits of that identifier for us all. We all tell stories. It's the way we share what we've drawn from our military experience. It's exciting to me to find now that some of these young people who the moms have talked about, who the spouses have talked about, saying this child moved 5 times and this child had to sit and wait until the class caught up with them before they could be engaged in the classroom, or this child had to be tutored in order to catch up to where the class was when we got to the new assignment. We now have those young people stepping forward and saying, I don't need my mom to speak for me. Can I be part of this? Can I tell my story? Can I be part of the message so that when mom and dad look to a site for where it is we're going, I too can look and I can be actively engaged in the decisions that are going to be made for me. So it's not just spouses that we have on our team. We also have those young people, whether they're in high school now or in college, or they finish their time with their family and no longer have that ID card, but they still want to be involved in helping those behind them to enter into the future the best prepared that they can be. So look us up at militaryfamiliesforhighstandards.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you for the work that you do. I have a few kiddos at my house that I will send your way to working with that. Carolyn.
According to the 2017 survey of active duty spouses, a third of our spouses moved in the past 12 months. Needless to say, the issue of spouse employment is very, very important to the department. Of that group of spouses who moved, about 14% had to acquire a new license. And we didn't have time today to talk a lot about licensing and portability, but please know that this issue is also important to us. It's an issue that the Defense State Liaison has taken on. They're looking very closely at interstate compact acts within the states, similar to what we've done with the education side of issues. Medical, physical therapy, teachers, all of those jobs that require certification, all of those jobs that fall under state requirements are something that we take very seriously and are looking at very closely. So certainly wanted you to be aware of that issue as well.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you to each of our panelists for being here, for your personal and professional expertise and sharing that with us. Thank you to the Congresswoman for sponsoring. We appreciate all that you do for military families. And I'll end with a quote from my mentor and the former First Lady of the Marine Corps and Ambassador to Hiring Our Heroes, Bonnie Amos. When she speaks of military families, she's famous for saying, "We're just damn good." And we appreciate all that you do, so thank you.
We are the largest and fastest growing community of military families in the country. Our work reaches over 1.5 million military family members each year. So if you're not part of our community and not part of our network, feel free to check our booth and table out there. There's a way for you to sign up and get all our information. We were founded in 2009 by a group of military spouses who thought military life was just too hard and there needed to be a way to make it a little bit easier. We have over 30 chapters and communities across the country where we have on-the-ground events for military families with an average of 3 each day, including our Blue Star Museums program, which provides free admission to museums across the country for military families. If you haven't checked that out, it's from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and I encourage you to take advantage of that program. We have our military spouse employment programs. We have books on bases for military children, and we have caregiver programs, family life programs, Blue Star Parks programs, a big array of everything that you all can take advantage of. Our mission is not just to build community, but it's also to tell the story of military life. Like I mentioned, our annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey is really how we tell this story, the story of all of you, and how we elevate your voices to the people who can make a difference and who can take your stories and take action across what you are telling them needs to be done. So our 2017 annual Military Family Lifestyle Survey had nearly 8,000 respondents. The survey is fielded every year between April and May, so we encourage you all to take a look at it when it opens up and participate, share your stories. It's open to active duty, spouses, and veterans and their families as well. The survey is designed by Blue Star Families in collaboration with Syracuse University's Institute for Veterans and Military Family Members. And the survey results have sparked changes with policymakers, businesses, foundations, and other nonprofit organizations on ways to make military families' lives better now and for years to come. So what are some of these findings as it relates to benefits related to education, health care, retirement, and financial security? We saw that millennial service members and veteran respondents consistently report that education benefits were their top reason for joining the military. Retirement benefits, healthcare benefits, and financial security are the top reasons that military family respondents stayed in the military. And as with many military benefits, survey respondents indicated their understanding of the blended retirement system was low. This means that retirement planning is an area where a large number of service members, spouses, and veterans experience significant challenges and uncertainty. Among those eligible for the new retirement system, 55% of respondents reported that they expected the new retirement benefit to be less than they otherwise would have received. 42% of service member respondents did not know how the new system compared to their old benefits. 37% of military family respondents reported feeling moderately or very insecure about their financial future. That's over a third of all respondents. 38% of military family respondents identify saving for retirement as their top obstacle to feeling more financially secure. And 35% identified saving for retirement as their top financial goal. The post-9/11 GI Bill continues to also be a powerful recruitment and retention tool, especially related to the first finding of military service members joining for the education benefits that the military brings. 79% of military family respondents indicated that they already have or plan to transfer their post-9/11 GI Bill to their spouse or their child. So Shannon, as another organization who also conducts research with military families, how do your findings from your 2017 Military Family Support Programming Survey compare to these results from Blue Star Families Survey?
Absolutely, and thank you so much. So, it's working. I'm Shannon Razin, Executive Director of Military Family Advisory Network, and we see a lot of overlap, and I think that one thing that's really fantastic is when multiple organizations, including the Department of Defense, conduct surveys, it gives us a little bit more insight into the realities and the real experiences that our families are facing. So one of our interesting data points that we had is that 60% of military families who responded to our survey did not have enough to cover 3 months of living expenses. So if there was an emergency, they maybe had enough, to get them by for a little while, but 3 months, which is kind of a good benchmark if you were to have some type of life event or transition happening, they didn't have that covered. Another data point that was really sad and astounding to us is that 15% of our respondents said that at some point they had faced food insecurity. So they had been concerned about their ability to put food on their table. Our survey is a little bit different. Ours is a qualitative focus, so we ask military families to share in their own words about, what they're experiencing, what they like, what they don't like, where there are opportunities for improvement. And so we're really hearing very personal stories similar to some of the stories that you all shared this morning. And I have to say that reading those stories and hearing from you all this morning, it really energizes me in the work that we do as an organization to keep at it and knowing that we're on the right track. And by you sharing your stories, we're able to identify opportunities for partnership. We're able to create new programs and really move the needs of military families forward. I'm a Navy spouse. We just PCS'd this summer. I have a 7-month-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm right in the thick of it with a lot of you. And so just know that there are people who are living this life, who are really doing everything that we possibly can to make positive impact for all of our families.
Great, thank you. So our first question, Colonel Barron. We know that benefits are an important topic for service members and their families, but why else might this be an important topic for us to discuss as it relates to our military as a whole?
Great, Al. Thank you so much for that question. I think I'm on. Okay, great. Military pay and benefits are absolutely crucial for recruiting and retaining the talent that we need in the all-volunteer force. So it's crucial that we address these issues out here. And we can't take the benefits for granted. I'll go into that a little bit in detail here in a second, but regular military compensation would consist basically of military pay, basic allowance for housing, the GI Bill, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, and family support programs are key benefits that numerous surveys out there taken by DOD, the services, Blue Star families, Military Family Advisory Network, and others have shown that is crucial for having someone volunteer for service and also retaining them to stay in the service. So it's important. And also, it's important to continue to maintain the benefits, these paying benefits out there in an increasingly competitive environment. The services are competing for talent out there. Make no mistake about that. They're competing for, it's a small number of percentages we all know that can actually qualify for service and then actually have a propensity to serve. And we're competing against for young people to go to college or else go out there and work in the private sector. So it's really key that we do maintain these pay and benefits. Two that I'd like to discuss just in a little bit more detail is military pay and then also basic allowance for housing. So military pay, in 2004, Congress tied military pay to the Employment Cost Index, which basically tied the pay raise, if you will, to private sector wages and salary growth. And that was an important move because prior to that, the military pay was always subject to different wrangling, political wrangling, back and forth about whether we're going to do one or not. And so all the way up until the period of, up until 2000, basically, we had developed a 13.5% pay gap between us and the private sector, and recruiting and retention was really hurting. And so with a concerted effort by the leadership in the Pentagon and Congress, and also a number of agencies out there and organizations we're all pretty well familiar with, moved forward and got this put into law in 2004. And then along with that period of time from 2000 to 2010, Congress had to basically do pay raises above ECI to get us back to parity. But there is no guarantee that we're going to maintain a pay raise every year. After moving up to parity in fiscal years FY14 through 16, the pay raise was not supported by Congress nor the executive branch leadership to keep it at ECI. And so we fell back, and we've now created a 2.6% pay gap again. So it's there. But again, with pressure put back on, and again, concerted effort with Congress and DOD and folks working together in a collaborative effort, we've had a pay raise this last year in FY18 of 2.4%, and we have one coming in FY19 at 2.6%. We'll see what's going to happen in FY 2020. The ECI comes out at the end of October. Moving on to basic allowance for housing, just one of the key elements there, and I know one of the questions came up this morning about dual BAH. Make no mistake about it, there is kind of a concerted effort about maybe there's ways to find ways to save money, if you will, on doing things with BAH. And particularly the target has been, didn't happen this fiscal year, but we had some years prior to that where the target was reducing the benefit for dual military couples. And we've been able to successfully push back on that. It wasn't pushed this year, but it's kind of out there as well. Congress did a number of moves back in the 90s, and I can remember that pretty well, where we had folks paying about 18% out of pocket with BAH. I know that kind of sounds unheard of today, but what Congress did in 2005 is they basically said we need to get this to a point where we can get zero out-of-pocket cost for BAH, and they did that and pushed it all the way up. And that all changed in 2015 with the National Defense Authorization Act in 2015, changing the rules and the decision made to we need to reduce that over time, over a period of time, for a 5 to a 95% coverage of BAH rental costs. And so that last percent, bringing it to 5%, just came out in this last passage of the FY 2019 NDAA. So now it's 95% out of cost. So again, these benefits, we can't take them for granted. And again, getting to the point, we need to stay engaged on it in close collaboration, working with DOD, Congress, and other agencies like my organization, Association of the United States Army, the Association of the Air Force Association, Blue Star Families, Military Family Advocacy Advisory Network, and many others in the military coalition working together. We've been able to keep these things competitive because it's absolutely crucial for recruiting and retention for our all-volunteer
Great, and one more question for you. The post 9/11 GI Bill. We know that this is a great example of a powerful benefit, but there was a recent announcement made by the DoD to the GI Bill benefit. Could you elaborate on what these changes include and any key takeaways that the audience here should be aware of?
Yes, so on the post 9/11 GI Bill, really tremendous benefit for all of us to have and to use. And I think one of the areas that's really that just changed here recently from the Pentagon was on July 12th. The Pentagon announced that there's now restrictions on transferability of the GI Bill. Real critical point of it. The education benefit is overseen by DoD, but it's paid for by or funded through the Department of Veterans Affairs. And when the law was made back in 2008, Congress always gave DoD the authority to make adjustments that they needed to do for transferability options and such. And so they went ahead and exercised that. And so basically they've now created a window. You first become eligible for transferring the benefit after you've done 6 years of service, but now the requirement is you have to transfer it at no later than 16 years of service. So you have to have at least 4 years eligible service remaining of your time in order to transfer that GI Bill. So the window you have is 6 to 16 years, and that's a change. It becomes fully effective. There's still some flexibility on that, but right now, as of July of 2019, so 1 year from the date of this announcement, that becomes effective for everybody. So what I would caution everybody or think about, if you're looking at transferring your GI Bill and you're in that window, I would do it. Don't hesitate. If your consideration is there, then go ahead and do it. As you can see, things can change, but you don't want to be caught with getting outside that window and not being able to transfer that benefit. And I know there's service members out there that have already kind of run into that. But prior to this change from DoD, there wasn't a requirement or a limit of time or remainder time of service that you had to perform to be able to exercise your transferability. So if you're thinking about it, do it. That's my words to you today. Thank you.
Great. Switching gears a little bit to talk about TRICARE now. Captain Simmer, there have also been some changes to the dental coverage, to the federal employees' dental and vision insurance program, and to the medical benefit. Can you elaborate on some of these changes?
Sure.
And what should the audience be particularly aware of?
Okay, I'd be happy to. So this is probably the greatest transformation we've had in the military health system in the last 50 years. Started last year, will be continuing over the next few years. Very briefly, some of the changes that are happening. Number one, in the past, our military treatment facilities, our military hospitals and clinics, were either Navy, Army, or Air Force. They are all now coming under the management of the Defense Health Agency, the group that I work for. They'll still be called Navy or Army or Air Force hospitals, but they'll actually be run through the Defense Health Agency. That's happening over the next 2 years. We just moved the first group of hospitals on October 1st of this year. And all the hospitals in what we call the East region, basically east of the Mississippi River, move next October, and then all the ones out here in the West region will move in October of 2020. So that's one big change. From the purchase care side, where I mostly focus on, we have several changes, as you mentioned. One is with the dental benefit. So right now we have what's called the TRICARE Retiree Dental Program. Retired service members can sign up for that and get a dental benefit. They basically have to pay for that. But as of December 31st, that's going to go away, and instead they're going to be eligible for something known as the FedVIP program, or the Federal Employees Dental and Vision Insurance Program. So basically they're going to be eligible for the same dental and vision insurance that all federal employees are eligible for. They'll have to pay for that. The good news is because they're being spread across a pool that's mostly a little bit younger than many of our retirees, they'll probably in most cases pay a little bit less. Not always, but in most cases. They'll also get to choose from a selection of plans. So there's 10 different dental plans that they'll be able to choose from, and 4 vision plans. So they can basically choose the level of coverage they want. Of course, more coverage will cost more, but they can choose for themselves and their family what they feel is most appropriate based on the cost and the benefits that they'll get. Another nice piece of this is that for the first time, active duty family members will be able to sign up for the vision coverage. So in the past, we really haven't had much vision coverage for family members, things like eyeglasses and that sort of thing. But family members can now sign up for the vision coverage as well. Down the road, we're anticipating in 2022, Congress has directed that the family member dental plan that we currently have, the active duty family member dental insurance, is also going to go away, and we're going to move active duty family members into this same FedVIP program. Now, that's still about 3 years down the road, but that is definitely coming. That was in the law that was just passed, the National Defense Authorization Act. So we are already working with the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, who runs the federal employee program, to make sure we're ready to move all of the active duty family members over when the time comes. Key point with the dental plan. You have to, if you're a retiree and you currently have our dental retiree plan, or even if you don't, you have to sign up for the FedVIP program between November 12th and December 10th of this year. If you don't make the December 10th deadline, you're locked out until next year. So if you're as a retiree, you want that dental coverage, you have to sign up basically starting in a couple weeks through December 10th. And it's the same thing if you're an active duty family member and you want the vision coverage, you have to sign up in that window. So that's a big change that's coming. The other change that we've had, as you may know, is on January 1st, well, one, we switched contractors. So out here in the West, we used to have United. We now have HealthNet. In the East, we had HealthNet and Humana. We combined those two, and that's now Humana's area. But another big change is that we used to have TRICARE Prime, which we still do, and that hasn't changed all that much. But then we had what was called TRICARE Standard. And basically, TRICARE Standard was a standard insurance program. You saw the doctor, you got a bill, you sent it to us, and we paid the bill. And you had some cost share in there, but you basically paid. But basically, you didn't have to do anything to be covered. That is no longer true. As of January 1st of 2018, we changed to TRICARE Select. TRICARE Select requires enrollment. Many of the rules are basically the same as TRICARE Standard. You still don't have to have a primary care manager. You don't have to have a referral to see most specialty care. But you do have to enroll to have coverage. Now, if you were in TRICARE Standard on December 31st, 2017, we automatically moved you to TRICARE Select, so you didn't have to do anything. But let's say that you retire today. You would now have to tell us, I want TRICARE Prime or I want TRICARE Select as a retiree. If you don't tell us within 90 days of your retirement date, you end up in neither, and neither means all you have is space available care at a military treatment facility. Most military treatment facilities probably don't have space available, so that really means you have no coverage. And we want to really get the word out because we don't want people in that situation. So this really mostly impacts people who are retiring today. Those folks need to enroll in a plan within 90 days of their retirement. You can choose either one, but you have to take that action. So that's a really important point. The other big change for a lot of folks is you used to be able to go from TRICARE Prime to Select pretty much any time you wanted, right? If you were in TRICARE Prime, you didn't like it for some reason, you could switch over to TRICARE Select at any point. Now, there was a lockout. You couldn't go back to TRICARE Prime from Select for a year, but you could go in that one direction anytime you wanted. As of December 31st of this year, that will no longer be true. So as of January 1st, 2019, if you want to change from Prime to Select, you can only do that during that same open enrollment period, November 12th to December 10th. So if you're in Prime today and you want to switch to Select, or vice versa, let's say you're on Select today and you want to switch to TRICARE Prime as a family member or a retiree, you have to tell us that between November 12th and December 10th of this year, and that decision will apply to all of 2019. Now, there are some exceptions. If you, for example, get married, you get divorced, you have a child, you leave the military, so you have some significant life change that we call a qualifying life event, then you can change out of cycle. But absent one of those, you have to make that decision between November 12th and December 10th. You're going to hear me say that several times because we really want people to hear that. I have a bunch of brochures here about the dental program I can pass out afterwards too. But this enrollment is a new thing for a lot of people, and it's really important because if you don't do it, you can get locked out, and that's a really bad outcome.
So could you also talk to us about the recent Congress-directed transfer and what the military healthy system transition means to service members and families?
Sure. So as I mentioned at the outset, the military hospitals are transferring from service control to DHA control for most things. The services retain responsibility for medical readiness, right? And that's why we have a military health system. Our number one function is ensuring that we have a ready military force that's ready to deploy on a moment's notice, and that we can provide them the medical care while they're deployed as well. That's why we exist. But obviously, a big part of our mission is also taking care of families, because we know that family readiness impacts on military readiness, very importantly. And obviously, retirees and their families have served and they've earned that benefit. We need to make sure we provide them with that outstanding benefit that they've earned. So that's all clearly within our mission set. As we move the military hospitals under DHA control, and our director, Admiral Bono, directly under her supervision, I think that's going to have several benefits. One of the things you'll see is a greater consistency across facilities. Right now, every military treatment facility can decide what procedures they're going to perform, what they're going to cover. And then we have a separate set of rules for that in TRICARE. In the purchase care side, we have our own set of rules for what we cover. We are now moving towards a system, and you'll see this happening over the next year, where the same things will be covered everywhere, which you can get, now the military treatment facility may not offer neurosurgery, for example, so, the military treatment facilities won't have every service, but what's authorized to be covered will be the same everywhere, whether it's a military hospital or a civilian hospital. And our ultimate goal, and it's going to take us a little while to get here, but we want it to be one seamless system of care, so that really the only difference between going to the military hospital, going to the civilian facility, is one place they have to show your CAT card at the gate, and one place you show your CAT card at the front desk, because that shows you have insurance. And that's really our ultimate goal. That's what Admiral Bono has said that we're working towards. We're working very hard to get there. It's going to take some time, but we are definitely trying to move in that direction. So I think the other big piece that you'll see with the consolidation of all the hospitals under DHA, in addition to the consistency, is you're also going to see that there will be greater combination of services at each facility, so that, it may be Fairchild Clinic, or it may be Naval Hospital Bremerton, but it's equally likely that you'll have Army people or Air Force medics at the Naval Hospital, and the same thing at Fairchild. You'll have Navy and Army personnel there too. So we're trying to blend the three services medical areas so that they work together as one team, because when you're deployed, we work together as one team, and we need to start doing that in garrison as well.
Great, so changing topics again to the blended retirement system. The new BRS is a hot topic, and I know one that we could all use some additional awareness on, me included. So, Jerry, for starters, could you tell us about 2018 being the year of action?
So yes, thank you so much first let me say that it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm honored to be on this panel. I just want to give you a little bit about my background. I'm a retired naval officer. I'm also a military spouse because my husband retired from the Navy as well. He likes to say he's the warrior of the family, being a first Gulf War veteran. I manned a desk while he went off to war on an aircraft carrier. So we are a Navy family and have been, but I've been doing military pay and benefits for about 20 years now, so I'm finally getting the hang of it. And been working in the area of military personnel for about 35 years now, so that tells you how old I am. But I also have experienced the idea of moving with a family, very shortly after my children were born. They're now in college now, but we PCS'd with my twins across the country, and you haven't lived till you've had two babies in the car while you're trying to get across country. So it's an experience that everybody should share. But anyway, getting back to the blended retirement system, we're really excited about the blended retirement system because it does provide new opportunities, and it truly is a blend, and I want to make sure that people really understand that. It is a blend of the old, the defined benefit, monthly retired pay, but it now has a component where we provide, using the thrift savings plan, we provide a 401k type component that's earlier vested and portable. And so for our members, this will mean that in the future, instead of only about 20% being eligible for a government provided retirement benefit from their military service, that fully 85% of members will have a government provided benefit that they can take with them back to the civilian community. Because as we've discussed a lot here today, everyone is going to transition one way or another, whether it be through separation, whether it be through retirement. And so we're very excited about this change to the military retirement system, which we say represents the biggest change in military compensation since World War II. Now, timing is everything in life, and I'm not surprised by some of the statistics that were quoted a little earlier about awareness of the system, because, some of what we did to roll out about awareness didn't occur until after, or just very shortly before, the Blue Star Family Survey was deployed. We like to say that 2016, when blended retirement was enacted, was a year of awareness. 2017 was our year of education. and we deployed our mandatory training for the opt-in population, and for the population in the active component that has less than 12 years of service, that they had a choice to make about opting in, whether to stay with the old or move to the new. Similarly, those in the reserve component also had a choice to make, and that was based on their retirement points. So the idea was that in 2017, we wanted to make sure people were prepared to make that choice, and so 2017 was indeed our year of education. We deployed training in February of 2017, so certainly by April, we're not surprised that some people still weren't aware and still hadn't taken the training. And in June, we deployed a comparison calculator that people could use to help them become informed about the differences and compare the two systems. And we also deployed additional resources from our financial readiness office for PFMs and PCMs at the installation level to be able to counsel individuals about making that choice. Now, the Department of Defense takes no position as to which is the better choice. For some people in the service today, the blended retirement is going to be the right option for them. But for others, the legacy system is the place to stay. And so what we want to make sure as the Department of Defense is that every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsmen, and even our colleagues in the NOAA Corps and the Public Health Service, because they too are under this new system, are prepared and informed and have the tools that they need to make the right decision that's best for them and their families. And so I want to just talk about the fact that this year is the year of action. The opt-in decision needs to be made started in 1 January and goes through the end of this year. So if someone is going to opt into the blended retirement, they need to make sure they do it by 31 December 2018. So most of the service members can do it via the MyPay, except for the Marine Corps. They can do it through McTIFs, Coast Guardsmen through their pay system, NOAA, Public Health, etc. But I want to encourage everyone in this room who might be eligible to make this decision to be prepared, to be informed, do your homework, take advantage of all the resources that are available, the calculators, the PFMs, the PCMs. We have a resource table out there. Visit military pay, one word, .defense.gov to find resources. Go to Military One Source. We've partnered with them to make sure spouses have access to our training and to our resources. Go there, do your homework, make the best decision for you and your family, and take action this year. Make sure that you don't get left out because you just failed to act.
So then how can the audience make the most of the blended retirement system through TSP contributions? And also, when planning for retirement, how could the spouse play a role?
So that's a great question. I appreciate that. So, of course, if someone does decide to avail themselves of the blended retirement system, a big aspect of it is what we call a defined contribution component, or a 401k type component, using TSP. So we want to make sure that everybody is aware that when they enroll in the blended retirement, that the government will automatically contribute 1% of your basic pay, whether or not you make a contribution. 1% of your basic pay goes in, and then they'll match up to another 4%. So if you contribute 5% of your basic pay or your drill pay to the blended retirement, then the government will match that at 5%. That's how you make sure that you're capitalizing on blended retirement, is you sit down between your spouse, your family, trusted agents, and you talk about what I need to do to plan for my retirement, to plan for my ultimate retirement. Not just retirement from the military, but your ultimate retirement, so that you're fully prepared and financially prepared to be able to retire. You know, in the greater American workforce, a 401k type pension plan is what's common today. You won't find a monthly retired pay type plan out there. Less than 7% of firms in the private sector offer any kind of defined benefit. So for those who will be transferring to civilian life eventually, one way or another, they need to be prepared to be able to save for their own retirement. So, you know, I'll just quote that old adage, save early, save often, right? Pay yourself first. Make sure that you are preparing for retirement. And don't leave money, and if you're in the blended retirement, or if you're in an moving into the private sector, if you're a reservist or a guardsman that also has a civilian employer 401k, don't leave money on the table. Make sure that you're putting in enough of your pay to be able to get the full match that the government offers. Again, under the blended retirement, if you put in 5%, the government puts in 5%. For those that opt into blended retirement, they're fully vested in that match right away, and in the 1%, they're vested if they have at least 2 years of service. That's not 2 years under the blended retirement system, that's 2 years of service. So if you happen to opt into blended retirement with 2 years and 6 months, you're vested right away, and you're vested in that those contributions, both in what you contribute, what the government contributes, and what those contributions earn, right, through the TSP. So that's how you make sure that you're maximizing, you take full advantage of the government match, you sit down and you do that planning that makes sure you're paying yourself first and planning for your future. I know that a lot of people, particularly as they're starting out, are thinking, I can't afford to contribute to my retirement, and besides which, that's so far out into the future, you know, I'll get around to it. Well, let me tell you, as someone who's a little older now, it's here before you know it. So, and before you can really turn around, your kids are grown, and you're facing retirement and leaving the workforce. So again, pay yourself first. Plan for your future.
That's great. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just one thing to add. We also know that often it's the military spouses who are making a lot of the financial decisions and managing the family's finances. So MFAN, the organization that I lead, what we've built is this financial education program that's online. It's called MilSense, and what it does is it takes all the reputable, vetted resources that are out there and puts them together in an online program that introduces you to those resources, but then also gives you an online platform where you can talk about what you're learning and have direct access to experts online. So I highly encourage everyone to check that out. It's free, it's online, and it's an example of how we've taken what you've shared through our research and through Boost Our Families research and MOAs and DOD, and we've responded to that, and we've built this program. Last year we had over 8,500 unique users in the program, and the response is really favorable. And so it's free, it's out there, it's vetted, it's trusted, and it gives you the direct access to experts online, and we know that all of us are online, and it's optimized for mobile.
So if I could just one more time put in a commercial for Military One Source, right? Because that, you know, along with sites like this, Military One Source is the place that it's fully open, right? Spouses can go there, take the training that was available to your service member spouse through Joint Knowledge Online. That training talks not only about just the elements of blended retirement, but talks about saving and managing and planning for your ultimate retirement. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of Military One Source.
I'd also like to take a second here to put a plug in for, we just launched a survey at MOA on Monday, working closely with our colleagues here to get that as widely distributed as we can, but we're looking to have folks that are currently serving active and reservists out there that are eligible for this during this opt-in period this year to take our survey. It's a short one. It's about 15 minutes probably to do it. We purposely made it about that length so we could keep people's attention on it and get that information, and we'll be sharing that pretty widely. But it goes to really focusing in on why people made the decisions they made this year. Was based on the education they received from DOD, spouses. There's a number of factors we know that go into that, but I would ask you to go to moa.org. For example, I know Blue Star Families is also helping us with the survey as one of our number of folks we have out there that are helping us distribute that. But if you go to that and take that survey, we'd greatly appreciate it. It will help us get information to basically move forward and provide better services in the future, work closely with DOD on providing better services in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question submitted from the audience for the panel, so this can go to anyone. Is there any discussion about expanding TRICARE benefits for military families having difficulty expanding their own families, specifically through IVF?
So we have looked at that. There are a few military treatment facilities that will provide that because they have to as part of their training program, although you do have to pay them a certain amount of money for that. That would require congressional action for us to cover that. So certainly, if Congress were to direct us to do that, we would. But that is actually in law that we cannot do that right now. So, but certainly, if directed, we would certainly consider that. Yes.
All right, well, we just talked about a lot of changes that are happening. Blue Star Families is one place that you all can go, bluestarfam.org, to help you connect to the military family community, connect to other resources out there. But Shannon, I know that your organization also works to connect military families with the resources they need to thrive. Could you tell us a little bit more about what other types of resources or education you recommend military families to seek out as it relates to this topic of benefits?
Sure. So last year we launched a program called MilMap. And what MilMap is it's a user-generated resource locator map. So that's a long way of saying it's a map where we're asking you to input information about programs and resources, where you go to connect with military families, where you go to seek benefits and support, outside installation, on installation, and then we vet those and put them in this program called MilMap. And it's really becoming a one-stop shop where people can go to get information about what's in their local area, where they are right now, or where they might be moving. And so our hope is that this can be a tool that will make the transitions that happen through this life a little bit easier for families. We know there are tons of resources out there, and sometimes it can become very overwhelming. Military OneSource does a great job also aggregating those resources. This pulls by your geographic location and then also by different topic areas. So if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, if you're looking for something to do with your kids, if you're looking for local events, and it's something that we're curating, we're vetting, so you don't need to worry about that, because that's a really important piece of this. And it's really a good way to get connected and kind of go from awareness to action. Like, get out in your community, go take advantage of the things that your community has to offer. We know that military families are turning to their communities for support, and so this is a good way to kind of pay it forward. And if there's something that you've enjoyed, add it into MilMap. You can find that on our website, so that other people can hopefully get connected a little bit more easily. I mentioned MilSense. We are also getting ready to launch another social learning program called MilU. Social learning is the fancy way of saying that it gives you an online platform to talk about what you're learning. So MilU will essentially cover physical health, mental health, and healthier relationships online. We built this in partnership with the National Council for Behavioral Health, the USO, and UCLA to really make sure that we're providing vetted, trusted information for military families. And then also, a big challenge that we have is communication, right? So you all are here, that's wonderful. And what we need you to do is to bring the information that you're learning today out to your communities. It's one thing to hear from organizations, it's one thing to hear from DOD, it's one thing to hear from the services, but we know that when people are connecting with people that they know, be it online or in person, and when they're hearing information, that's the most trusted way to get the information in the right hands. So that's a lot of how our organization works. We bring together these leaders and influencers in the community, and we turn to them and say, help us, understand the needs of military families, but then also make sure families are aware of the tons and tons of resources that are designed to serve them. So really grateful that you all are here, and that's a huge thing. So pat yourself on the back, but also, make sure other people are aware of what you've learned today. Do you have a question? Yeah. Right. Yeah, so I can speak to our programs, which we're a nonprofit, but what we do is we create program tracks. So MilSense, our financial education program, we have 5 unique program tracks. So actively serving, transitioning, so those people who are considering getting out, retiree, veteran, and those who are currently in ROTC or the service academies, because we know the military life cycle doesn't stop the day that you stop, your active duty service. And so that's something that we continue to keep in mind. We always have retiree and veteran representatives on our advisory board to help bridge that space. But it is a really tricky thing, and through our research, we know that one of the things that's missed most is when you step away from active duty service. It's the community, and it's that network that you have, and it's a support system. So how can we rally around families as they're transitioning out and get them supported through that full move?
Yeah, I'd also like to highlight a number of associations that are out there, and I mentioned them earlier. My association, but also Air Force Association, Association of the United States Army. A lot of them have transition assistance out there. I know we have a significant amount of assistance that we do and put on job fairs. We do other kinds of things with my organization, but I would highlight these other organizations that we work in close collaboration with that are doing that to help out folks that are in that either just getting ready to transition or in the process of transitioning, or like you say, that are in that 3 to 5 year window afterwards. Because in reality, folks, once they transition, they may not stay where they're going to be, where that first job they have, they turn around and they move in a couple of years. And that kind of, you heard that before you got out, but when you start looking around at your colleagues out there and folks who've got it, it's pretty true. People have moved on, they move on to different types of things, so they're looking for what's that next, exciting thing for me to do out there. What is that that's really going to interest me in what I want to do next? But there's a lot of resources out there. Shannon touched on some as well, but I'd kind of check those out. Check out the websites and check out those organizations and see what kind of resources they have for you that could help you out.
All right, thank you, everyone. That's the end of our panel. Just wanted to say thank you again to our panelists. Thank you to everyone for listening and for being here today.